What up, everybody? It's Double G for the Fight Game Podcast, our Moss edition, the very first episode of our spin-off show. How long have we been doing the Fight Game Podcast, do you think?
83 years ago. Since 2017, 16, maybe? I don't know.
That's what I would guess. I would guess 17. And originally, I was doing a show called FGB Radio, which was like the test version of this, and I was just messing around with it. We did that for a bunch of years, me and Big D, Jason Hagholm as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I figured out, like, okay, you really kind of need hosting, you need distribution. I think we did the Fight Game Podcast, and we were like on what was the sound? Was it SoundCloud or whatever that service was? And then we hooked up with Blue Wire, and we did it on Blue Wire for like a year. Mm-hmm. And then I was doing the Wrestling Observer Radios with Big Dave, and I just reached out to Brian. I was like, hey, why don't we bring this thing on? And, we get this a lot, which is, oh, you guys are behind the paywall. And yeah, I agree. Like, if it was out there for free, like, it's a lot easier accessible. But the reason why I went behind the paywall is I was already doing content for that website. And I was like, hey, can we bring it on the Observer site? And then it kind of allowed you to get a little bit of a stipend. So if people think that I'm a sellout for going the Observer, it's just so John can get a little bit of money for doing this show. That's what the whole gig was for going to the Observer. But obviously, F4W is an engine and a machine, and our flagship, the OG version of this podcast that you are listening to, and some of you are watching, exists there. So if you like this, if you've never heard us before, or if you kind of miss us, then you got us here on Fight Game Media. But if you want to listen to the flagship, which is going to be a longer show, it is every Thursday night, Friday morning. We sometimes also live stream to F4W Online, their YouTube channel. But that's where the bigger show is. This is a sort of a special edition every couple of weeks when there's a big event, like, which we'll talk about, World's End. We kind of, like, by Thursday when we actually record, it's kind of late in the game, and our takes are a little fresher on a Sunday evening as when we're recording this. So that's the reason for this show, and we're going to have these shows periodically throughout the year on the Fight Game Media Network and on our YouTube channel. So let's actually kick it off, man. Like, before we actually, I'll be playing the sound and all the graphics and stuff on this show as well. But before we get to our report card, I was just asking you about this. It was you and Jeremy from our normal crew at Big Dave's house, obviously Big Dave, and Big Dave's brother, it's funny when people realize that Big Dave has a brother who's a comedian, has like a comedy act. They kind of wig out a little bit. And then our friend, Mary, who is the daughter of Pampero Firpo, you mentioned, she came late. But what was the vibe? Like, you've seen all of these AEW shows at Dave's house. Was it subdued? Were people kind of going crazy? Like, what was the ambiance there at Dave's?
No, it was really chill, good conversation. Dave was, pretty peppy, I thought. And then sometimes, he works a lot. So sometimes you don't know what Dave you're going to get. But sometimes he's so busy with work and stuff, or, stuff, personal life. You can, sometimes he can be down or up. But this time he was really peppy and very talkative. We're all talking about the show and other things. And, Dave was doing cartwheels for Will Ospreay. He was there live. I think we had to time down the seat, but he was really enjoying the show. We had a couple of good discussions that he brought out to, like, on X. He asked, like, what's the best opening match on a pay-per-view ever? Or a performance of a one-night performance of a wrestler. So those started with us, as we're chatting it up in this family room watching the show.
And the cool thing about us being able to go live when we do this show is, people who are either up late or they're in, different countries where the time zone is different. We got a couple people. Somebody, Hassan, says it's 9 a.m. where Hassan is, and then Transferring Heat said that they watched the Punk and Gunther cage match. How did they watch it? It was a house show.
Maybe someone had it on the
Put it on
phone and
X,
just posted it. Yeah.
I guess.
Or maybe it went to the show.
Yeah, maybe they went to the show. They said that Gunther won. So there was some talk that maybe Punk would actually get a title win on a house show, and I was like, it's kind of weird because they don't really have a feud. It would definitely be a hot shot kind of deal.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that was interesting. All right, so let's talk about some World's End here, and let's kick it off with our report card.
All right, it's time to go to school, son. Come on, get your hands up, man. You need an interpreter? It's time to go to school.
So if you've heard us do this bit on the Fight Game podcast, the flagship, the OG show, we don't, we don't. Personally, I'm not a fan of like star ratings. I know, Dave's all about star ratings. You'll give out your star ratings on Twitter. I'm more or less looking for grades. So when we look at a show, what is your grade, A through F, based on what you saw, based on, some of it is also expectation. And what is your overall grade for AEW World's End?
If they had a better ending, I would probably give it a solid A or maybe A minus, but I'm going to go the B plus with it.
I mean, that's a really good grade. I'm right there with you. It's hard to discredit a show that has Will Ospreay and Kazuchika Okada on it, because I thought the last 5 minutes of that match was like maybe the best 5 minutes of a wrestling match that I've seen. And it's not like we haven't seen them together before, so we kind of knew the dance, but I thought that they were pretty creative in getting to certain things that they got to. But here's a question that I want, and I'm going to agree with you. I was going to say B plus, and leaning. It could have been an A minus if that main event was better, or if they just closed with the other match.
Yeah.
But do you think so? We got to see 2 Will Ospreay matches, the opener, and then he came in the semi-main event. I thought seeing Okada twice and seeing Ospreay twice meant that you saw similar things in setups in both matches. You saw similar moves. And this was my worry going into the show. Well, one, when you get to that final, you want like at least a week to build that, to promote that finals match. Because imagine if we saw the semifinals last week and they had a full, week and a half to market Kazuchika Okada and Will Ospreay as the finals. You might have gotten more buys that way. You might have gotten more people who may have skipped this show going like, oh my gosh, we're going to see Okada and Ospreay. I have to get it now. But at the same time, I think seeing the wrestlers twice, those guys are great. If anybody can do it, those guys would be at the top of my pick to do it. But I don't know. There was a point in the beginning of that match where I was just kind of like, okay, I already saw a lot of what I'm going to see. But then again, like I said, the last 5 minutes were great. Do you think if we only saw Okada and Ospreay wrestle once, would you have liked it better, or did you actually like seeing both of them work twice?
I think the issue with them working twice is because all 4 competitors in the tournament have a similar style in a way, like the very high action, high spot style, like Kyle Fletcher, Ricochet, Ospreay aren't that much different in styles. Okada, a little more slower pace, but so I think that's why you saw a lot of the similar things. Unlike, say, King of the Ring 93, where Bret Hart wrestled 3 different opponents in 3 different styles. You had Razor Ramon, you had Mr. Perfect, you had eventually Bam Bam Bigelow. So there's 3 different types of matches. Here, there's going to be, if the semifinal and the finals are going to be probably a little bit similar, but it didn't hurt me at all. I didn't mind the tournament aspect. I kind of like the idea. If you're going to do a tournament like this, semifinals and the finals on the same show, But I would have made this the finals the main event if you really want to get this tournament over, like make it the focus of that pay-per-view. And I know the world title, a lot of people think it has to go on last, and normally it should. But man, I wish Tony would have saw the right. You must see like this angle is not what people really care for right now. Like, just I would have put the final. You're not going to follow Will Ospreay and Okada what they're going to do, and it was tough. It was tough for the 4-way to follow, and it was not good a match anyways. So
Yeah, it wasn't that good. The thing that I have an issue with when it comes to this title is that it's like is it the fourth most important men's title? Like,
well, Dave and I were talking about that last night. Is that, as we're watching this 4-way, I'm thinking when we see Kenny Omega come out and confront Okada, it's like that feels like the most important match,
yeah,
right?
yep,
Whatever Omega's doing is the most important match in AEW. That's what it feels like to me. And Mox, this stuff is just this whole Death Rider thing. It's just not connecting, and then now you're gonna throw FTR and Adam Copeland there in a program with them, and I just don't think the fan base wants that. I think they liked having them on the roster, but I don't think they really want to see. They want the originals. They want the Kenny Omega. They want the Darby Allins, and they want another guy that's not a WWE guy like a Will Ospreay to kind of really get behind. That feeling. Remember that they always say. So I think Omega's a big important piece right now coming back.
Yeah, well, after we kind of get through what we liked and didn't like about the show, we're bringing back an old segment called The Big Picture. And we'll kind of pull back and take like a big view of where they are after this pay-per-view is over. But, obviously, the Ospreay-Okada match, great. Ospreay and Fletcher, I really liked as well. I saw some people said that they liked that match better. I didn't really think it was as good, but it was really good for what they were doing. Just it's a bummer that Kyle Fletcher had to lose that match. I will also say that Mercedes and Chris Statlander, I really appreciated. It had the same issues that I complained about last show, which is no one believes Statlander's going to win. And it was even worse this time because they kind of shoehorned her in at the end. They didn't really have an opponent for Mercedes. I thought it was Mercedes' best performance to date in AEW because she was fighting uphill with the idea of sort of a non-contender or a non-build for this match that was shoehorned. And I thought she did such a great job of making Statlander stuff look great. She's a small-ish woman and she's very athletic, so she can take these bumps and her whole body kind of, falls over itself. And it looks very impressive, makes Chris Statlander stuff look really impressive. And I looked at it as like, Chris Statlander's a pretty good wrestler. I think Mercedes is like a really good wrestler. So that made the match. They gave them a lot of time. But I don't know. I think it solidified for me that whatever you think about this Mercedes character, like if you don't like it, I completely understand why you wouldn't. It's a little over the top. It's a little WWE if that is not your flavor. But when she's in the ring and she's wrestling, like that kind of goes away for me. And I thought the 2 shows in a row that she was just awesome.
I wasn't a fan of this match. A lot of people love this match. I know it was basically sort of a cold match because, like you said, like this, they really did not have an opponent for her. And I think Tony was like, okay, well, Chris Statlander's match with Mercedes Moné last pay-per-view was really well received. Let's do a rematch. And this match here, I thought a lot of the psychology was off. Look at the finish. The finish in the end, that the heel champion out wrestles the babyface, and that's not how a heel should go over, in my opinion. And then people are like, "Oh, that like even Dave was talking, and even Jeremy's like, I feel like there's a rematch coming." I'm like, "What rematch? She beat her. She beat her. She beat her twice." Now, what they should have done, remember that spot where her leg was locked in the under the ring, and I know it was silly, and then she can obviously pull her foot out any time, but if they could have used something like that to where the referee's trying to get her out of there, he's telling Mercedes get back, trying to help Chris Statlander, and Mercedes just jumps off the apron and knee drops her around that knee on that leg and breaks it, right? And the match is stopped because she broke her leg. Holy shit, man. Now you get a couple more months of Mercedes on top, still as champion. Here comes Chris Statlander back for revenge. Man, that's the reason to have the third match, right? So I don't know. They did all this thing, and then beyond that match, they're working on the leg, right? Statlander's leg was injured.
Mm-hmm.
The match before it with MJF and Adam Cole working on the leg.
Working on the ankle.
And what was the next match after that? There's another match that they were working on the leg or something like that, right? There's like 3 matches in a row where they're working on the Will Hobbs and Batista.
Yeah, it was Hobbs.
Right? 3 matches in a row. Like, it's like, what's going on there? There's no quality control, right? I was joking with Jeremy when I was watching. I'm like, I bet on the booking sheet in the back where it says agent, it says Alan Smithy. Like, no one wants to put the name on these matches because they're not listening to the agents, in my opinion. It doesn't seem like that. No one's talking to each other.
I mean, they should at least work with each other. Like, just go, hey, what are you doing?
You would think, but
yeah.
You can tell by the show that they don't.
Okay, here's the thing about the Mercedes match. To me, she knows that, she knows all the things that we know, that there was no real build, no real grudge. It was shoehorned at the end. And the reality is what, because everyone goes back to, what was it? Sasha and Charlotte at the WrestleMania that we were at, which kind of puts to Vince, it puts the women on the map, and the Sasha and Bayley match. At the end of the day, no matter what the storylines were for those matches, like it was an embrace because together they did it, right? Together they showed the wrestling world that women could main event and have these great matches. And I think that's where we're at, except for when you have these crazy grudges, because you can't tell that, like Toni Storm and Mariah May, when they finally wrestle against each other, it's not going to be this like romantic, like, story or whatever. It's going to be a grudge, and it's going to be blood, and it's going to be whatever. But here, because they didn't have that, I was like, Mercedes is great. Like, just add another thing to her title run. Just showcase that because she could have done the heel thing. It would have probably worked better the last time if they had a plan to get to the second match. But she's closing out this program. I have no problem with her just going, I'm just the best. I didn't need to do anything sort of underhanded to win the match. Like, on the concept of babyface versus heel, I completely understand it. There needs to be more cheating for sure with heels, especially when the heels are often pushed more so than the babyface in AEW. So I get what you're saying, but I also see, if you're Mercedes and you're putting a stamp on 2024, you're just putting together, the best wrestling match that you think you can do, where the build and all that stuff isn't great.
I'm just saying, as Tony, as the booker, if you're going to book the babyface in a rematch with the heel champion on the next pay-per-view, like, have a plan, because you don't want to beat your babyface clean twice because you just hurt your babyface. It's not like Chris Statlander's leaving the territory and we're not going to see her again, and that's okay. If that was the case, that's great. But she's going to be there, for next week, and then the week after, and next month, and all those next year. So you want to, like, give her something, her own out, so you can come back and do business again. That's the idea, is like, you want to do more business later. And Statlander's not Anna Jay or, she's like one of the top girls, right? She would have to be in at least the top 5 of that company when it comes to the women wrestlers. So I think she should have been protected.
All right. The other match that I wanted to talk about, as far as what I really liked on this show, Hobbs and Takeshita, because I was a little worried, and I was really worried in the beginning of this match where you were talking about the selling of the leg. I was like, oh no, they're like handicapping Will Hobbs at some of the stuff that he does really, really well. And they're telling the same story as the MJF thing, which is these guys who come back from injury aren't actually healed, and they're getting hurt during the match. And so they're kind of working uphill. And I was like, oh gosh, because like for the first 4 minutes, it was like really slow, and Hobbs is like sludging through stuff. But then they did a lot of their powerful stuff. I mean, we knew Hobbs wasn't going to win. I just the thing that I wish is that they would just tell this dude's story a little bit better, because he's so, like, he did an interview on Rampage, and it was a generic, like, oh, we have a match tomorrow kind of interview. Like,
Uh-huh.
remember when they were doing that Book of Hobbs stuff and he's like kind of
Oh,
walking
yeah,
the
yeah.
streets and then it just gets dropped and that like I think they need to spend some time investing in his character, but just as a match that was kind of again put together at the last minute that didn't really mean anything. I thought he did a really good job in that match. Takeshita's really good. I think people see Takeshita as like this top guy, and I don't really
Mhm.
see him booked as that. But to some folks, it was like, oh, I hope I hope Takeshita gives Will something. And I was like, I mean, they're not that far away from level wise, but I guess
Mhm.
people see Takeshita higher. I was impressed with what Will did, and I was happy at the end because I was really worried about that match going in.
Yeah, this is another match I didn't like. I thought the psychology is all wrong. I understand the leg thing and working on the leg thing, but I'm like, why was he telling this story when he just told it with Adam Cole and MJF? And at many times in the match, Takesha, who I know is a very big guy, right? But his gimmick is not the power. The gimmick in Powerhouse Hobbs is the power, is the muscles, the big power moves. And many times this match, Takesha's powering up and suplexing and slamming Hobbs. He needs to be bump around more for Hobbs. They showcase Hobbs' strength more. And I don't think they did that. And Hobbs is selling most of the time. And, I understand there needs to be a heat. There needs to be,
Mhm.
he needs to sell, but they could have told us in a different way. It really,
Hobbs's like big move was to just yell meat at the crowd, and then he was on fire. I was like,
I
why
know,
did
I
he do
know.
that for?
I don't know.
You
I
know
don't
what?
know.
Honestly, I think he thought probably that the crowd was a little kind of sitting on their hands a little bit. He knew the trick to get them into
Well,
it.
and this is a bad match to book at this stage. Powerhouse Hobbs just came back a month ago, I would say, maybe. And he hasn't really been featured that much on Dynamite, or I don't even think Collision. I've tuned in Collision this last month or so, at least skimming through, and I don't remember seeing him too often. If he's on, I'll usually watch him.
Mhm.
And he came back and they did that 6-man tag, and then basically he was, you know, not there anymore, So this is a very cold match, and he got beat clean in the middle, flat in the middle. So what does he go from here? He's just probably a guy that's going to be pushed aside again, and that's unfortunate because I think they have something in him. He's one of those guys that I'm pretty sure when his contract's up, WWE will probably try to snag him. I would think, but that'll be interesting too if that happens. But I think that will happen for sure.
This brother's going to have some injury time though on his contract.
Yeah, I'm sure. Tony will drop that on him. I'm sure.
All right, what were some of the other matches that you liked?
I did like Okada and Ospreay. I thought that was a really good match. I actually enjoyed MJF and Adam Cole. I thought they had a good wrestling match.
Interesting.
The finish and all that stuff I did not like, but the post match was ridiculous. I liked Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher. I thought that was a really good match. I don't understand the whole idea why they did heavy blood in the first match when it played no part in the finals of Okada. Like there's no like in the finals the cut opening up and Okada working on it and Ospreay like losing his focus or getting disoriented because too much blood loss from on the night. Like, so why do such a heavy blood like in the first match if it didn't mean anything? Ultimately for the finals, you want to tell that story.
I think it's just to give him a small excuse or something like a small visual excuse for losing.
This post-match interview of the first match, he's like, "I'm freaking great. Let's do this. Come on, yeah. I told the doctor leave the blood because I don't care. Let's run." Like fuck, like Ospreay is a very good athletic and exciting wrestler, but he's not the greatest. He's not a great psychologist in the ring as everyone thinks. And just by the fact, like, okay, why are we doing the blood? Is it going to play into the finals? If it's not going to play in the finals, let's not do the blood. Someone should have said that, right? Someone, not Tony, because he doesn't know, he doesn't understand, but someone should have said, like, let's not do it because what's the point? I don't know, ridiculous, but.
I did not like MJF and Adam Cole. It felt to me like they both knew that this program was dead, and
I know.
they
Yeah.
weren't gonna try and tear. I mean, I'm glad that they didn't actually try to
Well,
tear it up because
NGF tries to do a wrestling match, more of the, because like he can't, because like why? Like, you're already gonna see with the matches beforehand all these big spots and the flying and everything. So they kind of try to bring it back to wrestling, which I enjoyed.
I hated the finish.
Oh yeah, that was
Adam
cool.
Cole, like I had in the Discord, I had the jabroni list, and number one was Ricochet for getting toilet paper thrown at him and just standing there and taking it and not getting mad or anything.
Or just walking off.
Yeah, the second person though was Adam Cole, because this dude was about to cheat, had the gimmick on his hand while he lost the match and took the pin. Still had the ring on as he ate the pin. How can you root for a babyface like that?
And then like the spot where MJF slams his own head on the steps or his hands to make a big loud noise. And then I did this to my sister and she got in trouble one time. I did the old hand pop, and my mom got mad at my sister because I said she punched me. It was great. And then oh man. And then so okay. The referee can't call what he doesn't see, right?
We've seen this a little bit more of late, where, yeah, they're very like, depending on what they need, they put these referees in some bad situations, man.
Yeah. So usually I know you could say, well, John, in tag teams, the heel tag team will switch out and the referee will say, no, I didn't see it. You got to go out. And then the bayface will do it, but the referee will allow it. Well, because the bayface are trustworthy guys, right? That's why they kind of go with the fans. But for a heel like MJF, who's done all this stuff, what referee in that company would be like, okay, MJF, I take what you say at face value, and I'm gonna, kick these guys out.
I remember the other referee thing that I was thinking of, which is Rick Knox, who, for whatever reason, no, this was on I think this was on Collision. Remember, I was telling you about how Commander pulled out the gimmick that Darby left for him so he could punch Claudio. Yeah. So how they did this is Claudio comes over, Commander's under the apron, and Claudio's leaning over to grab him. And Rick Knox is watching it the entire time. But right when Commander picks up the gimmick and is about to hit him, he just randomly looks in the crowd.
Oh, yeah. They do that a lot in AEW. Also, they're like, oh, what was that? What was it?
Yeah, so like, name, Mom? Yeah, a fly caught his attention or something, and he just looked away. Like there was no distraction at all. He just decided to look. Instead of doing his job, he decided to look away. So, yeah, I mean, it's just unfortunate that. And I was having this discussion with somebody else. And I was saying how, when AEW started, they were very anti-disqualification. And when they decided, well, instead of having DQs, we're just going to have tons of interference anyway, and we're just going to not have the DQ. And it's fine, but you make the refs look really dumb 50% of the time. And I think that's a problem that they still have. Mm-hmm. In some instances, I'd almost rather have the DQ and you reinforce the referee and what they saw versus just making the referees look like idiots. The other thing, I guess, if I was to say that was slightly negative, I wasn't the biggest fan of the Tony Storm match, but also,
I didn't see it.
Also at the same time, not Tony Storm. I mean,
Mariah May Thunder Rosa.
Yeah,
I forgot
Mariah
about that match. That was bad.
Like, there wasn't a real reason to have it. It's very clear that Thunder Rosa was just the person who they needed because they're not ready to move on in the program. And, you talk about it, Thunder Rosa would have been the third jabroni on my list because her Pops was there ringside, and Pops is just looking like an idiot. Pops is bringing like some special thing that Mariah May uses, and poor Thunder Rosa. Like, it's just like,
for like
my gosh,
Sands of Tijuana or something like that. What was?
Yeah, I mean, this is why baby faces aren't over in this company, though, right? Because they're always using the baby face to make the heel to get heat for the heel. And I was watching SmackDown, which we'll talk about just very shortly. And Cody is cutting this passionate babyface promo about what drives him. And I was thinking, as I'm watching him cut this promo, I was like, who in AEW could possibly cut this promo and it to be even semi-believable? I don't think they have anybody.
No.
Copeland would try, but
Ospreay tried it.
Yeah, Ospreay's not a wordsmith, though. He's gonna.
Yeah. He tried it with the family stuff and
yeah.
all that.
So if we're not doing this on this show, but if I was to give like a New Year's wish for Tony Khan as a booker, it would be to just create a goddamn babyface, man. Like they desperately need one, and it shows in their booking about how many heels go over in ways that make the baby faces look silly.
Did you? We kind of going back to that MJF Adam Cole match, the post match, right? Like when you have like, what was it? How many guys they have in that group? At
5.
5, yeah, 5 guys kicking MJF's ass, and they got booed, they got jeered, right?
Okay, and what about the main event? Moxley's entire reason to have the main event was because he didn't believe the 3 guys could take him and his guys. Like, because you make it a 4-way, automatically interference is fine. And you have your whole crew out there. So he's like, oh, they got 3. We got 4 plus Marina. We outnumber them. Of course we're going to win this match. And how come the baby faces could not see that they were outnumbered?
Then the people came out and helped them, though, right?
So and then somebody else said today, I think it was in the F4W Slack, that Edge and FTR such baby faces that they waited until the match was over to help out the guys. That was funny. That cracked me up. So Fernando said, "What about Swerve as the top babyface?" I would be fine with it, but he has a lot of edge to be that Cody Rhodes babyface. He's very edgy in his character. He's very cool. So I don't know if I would pick him to be that, but we'll see what they do with Swerve.
But with him, he's like 1 month he's a babyface, 1 month he's a heel, 1 month he's a babyface, 1 month he's a heel. It's like, what'd you think of that Ricochet moment?
Which one?
With the him losing, Swerve coming out, the whole toilet paper bit, and all that.
I would have left that at Hammerstein.
I
would have let Swerve kind of get his stuff in, but then I would have had something happen to him. Like I don't know. I don't know what Ricochet got out of that. He just looked like the nerdy guy who got beat up by the Hurt Syndicate the other day.
And then you think about what's coming up: AEW, New Japan, Wrestle Dynasty, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the main event is Ricochet challenging for the IWGP title against Zack Sabre Jr., right?
Yeah.
So on this show, you show Ricochet can't beat Okada, the former great champion, right? He gets dumped toilet paper on him. What makes you think, wow, this guy has a chance against Zack Sabre Jr. on this pay-per-view, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Weird.
All right, let's now we're going to pull back a little bit. We're going to pull back and we're going to take like the big picture look at post pay-per-view with the main programs that they showed us on this pay-per-view. And we called this segment the big picture. Okay. The first thing, I think the biggest thing, you already mentioned it. The thing that felt the biggest and the most important was Omega and Okada. After Okada won the match, Christopher Daniels comes out and says that he is not an EVP, but he knows someone who is. And Okada is in the ring. Omega hands the belt to him. And it felt like, oh, this is really cool. Now, Omega was really subdued. He wasn't fired up. This is Okada and, the Elite literally laid him out. I'm assuming they just want us to forget about that part.
They never mentioned it on commentary.
Yeah, that's what my guess is. That they just want us to forget that stuff ever happened.
Oh my god.
Okada's in there. Okada's smiling. Omega's, not fired up or anything. He was just very calm. And they did this like subtle thing where that all in sign was in the background, but they never really like hammered that thing home. So I'm guessing, we'll get some of that on the TV. And so I loved it, but I also thought it could have been way better at the same time.
Yeah, definitely could have been way better. And also that they're going to hold. I mean, I assume Omega's wrestling a few times before that July pay-per-view, right? So,
well, he's at least once with Gabe
yeah, we know he's wrestling once, but
he should beat Jack Perry, like we mentioned already.
You would think they would follow up with that, but like I said, they didn't even. I mean, Okada was an accomplice of that, putting him on that stretcher, throwing him off that stretcher, the Elite making fun of Omega, what they did to him. And someone should ask that question in that stupid suck-off scrum.
At the presser, yeah.
Like, looking back at 2024, doing the angle where they pile drive you, Tony Khan, to at the end of the month, and now we're at the point where it doesn't mean anything. What do you feel about that? And the Elite doesn't mean anything anymore. Something like that. They should ask something. But
I asked Dave a question on Wrestling Observer Radio, and it got aggregated.
Oh yeah, I know. I saw that one. Yeah.
And I was just like, if you gave Tony Khan some truth serum, what would he say about the Punk video with Jack Perry? And he's like, I had this discussion with him. Not only does he think that it was good to do, but he says it helped him get the TV deal. I was like, really? Like that's kind of incredible that piece of business was one of the things that helped them.
I can't
get their
imagine
money. I mean, I find it hard to believe too, but some of it has to be him justifying that decision. But yeah, I mean, he really believes in some of his stuff, but then again, when it gets dropped, someone should ask him that question, but I mean, I can assume what his answer would be. It's like, well, you don't know where we're going, you got to wait and see, or, we're going to have some great television shows or whatever, how he always ends those things. All right. So the other thing, two other things I wanted to kind of look at big picture wise. You mentioned Adam Copeland coming out with FTR. That was building to the TV show on New Year's. We had talked about on the Fight Game OG show on F4W that it would be. I wanted to see a hook for their TV coming out of this show. This is a hook. It's not the biggest hook. It's not anything that where I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be incredible. Like that actual thing was probably more Omega Okada than anything else. But they are building to something. They are building to Jon Moxley and Adam Copeland, which is not a match that, we've seen. I can't remember. I'm sure they've actually Copeland was gone for most of Moxley's run. If I'm remembering correctly, right?
I believe so. Yeah. WWE he was. When did Moxley? Oh yeah, because Moxley
left in 2019
before the pandemic, and Edge came back before the pandemic or at the pandemic, right? Because remember
during the pandemic. So I don't think they've wrestled.
No, they haven't wrestled. I just don't think Adam Copeland has any steam left. I don't think there's excitement for him anymore. His reaction, as we were talking about when we were watching the show, when he came out, it wasn't like superstar reaction, right? It was a good pop.
Yeah.
It wasn't like Kenny Omega's pop
when
he came out, So they're gonna do the match, and it should be a good match. Be interesting to see how Moxley works with Copeland and how that, because Copeland's a major politicker, right? So I'm sure
also
that's
two giant dudes as well.
Yeah.
Adam Copeland is so tall.
He said he wanted to during that press conference. I had all the podcasts are taking a break over the holidays, So
you didn't have your normal amount of content.
Yeah, so I'm like, all right, I'll just throw this on as I do the dishes here, and I hear Adam Copeland say, "I want a gritty NWA World Title match with Jon Moxley." I'm like, with Jon Moxley, you're gonna have a gritty world title NWA World Title match? I don't think so, buddy. But Good luck. Is that supposed to be on the Australia show? Is that what they think?
I don't know. I mean, their Revolution show is in
Mhm.
March, I believe.
And
So it could be
Australia's in
that.
February, right? February
Australia's in
15th.
February, yeah.
And we were all talking. I know we mentioned it on our show about Jay White,
Mhm.
and then even when we were discussing with Dave and Jeremy, we were all kind of like said, yeah, Jay White would be perfect for that show, and he's the guy that takes the fall in the
Yeah.
4-way,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So yeah,
I know. Why is Orange Cassidy even in the match if he's not there to lose?
I don't. Well, maybe because he lost. Maybe he's a politicker, and he said, "No, man," or just Tony. That's Tony's favorite wrestler, so maybe he was like,
Maybe.
"No, I can't beat this guy twice."
So in the chat, there's some question marks about why Copeland. And the only thing I can think of is, for one, Copeland is a baby face, so you got all these like quasi babyface, quasi heel guys on the
Mhm.
roster. He is a clearly outlined babyface, so I think that's one. Two, you were able to get a surprise. Like I think most smart fans saw this one coming, but there are
Yeah.
some who probably didn't see it coming. And I guess the third one would be he loses, and it's not that big of a deal when he loses. Like for instance, if you had Hangman lose, I think it's probably a bigger deal. If you had Darby lose, though Darby's kind of he's lost to a lot of other guys. Like, but you kind of want those guys to be there in the end when finally Team AEW does beat the Death Riders. And so Copeland is not part of that calculus, I'm guessing. So you can have him be kind of the next stepping
Mhm.
stone. That would be my
Do you,
guess.
do you think also maybe there's some Warner Brothers was like, we're doing this, was it Master of All simulcasts on
Yeah, mother of all simulcasts.
Mother of All simulcasts on January 1st. May they see Adam Copeland because of his WWE resume that he's a big star. I don't know. Maybe that's part of it.
He did win like a daytime Emmy or something for the Percy Jackson show, didn't he?
He did. I didn't know.
I think he did.
So, and then what about then the whole Christian thing? We're talking about the Christian thing. Now it's so much to do about nothing. Like he was just up there. Like I have it. Like, bro, you're on the second deck. Like
He wasn't gonna like what was the thing called when you have the rope in between the things and you just like fly down?
Yeah, the Shawn Michaels, the WrestleMania.
Yeah.
No, it's like okay, you're up there. What are you gonna do? And I love like they showed him, Kim Sabian, Nick Wayne's mom, and over here's Hook. He's watching over him.
Hook's watching.
Ridiculous.
But before we get to I do have a Hook thing. Lady B says the Emmys are in March and he's nominated, so he's not won. But he's not being nominated is cool because he's not even. I mean, I know he's done some acting, but that's not really his forte, and so that's really cool that he was nominated. The you don't watch Rampage, obviously, but
No,
I threw it on because I wanted to see the end story with the Death Riders just killing Darby and throwing him down the stairs.
I saw that clip on online.
And then there's like a soundboard that looks like amateur podcaster would kind of get it to do their podcasts, and it was also unplugged.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is what we were supposed to know was the like the control panel for like all of the lights and the audio in the building, and they're hitting it with the thing and lights go off. I'm like, come on, guys, that thing wasn't even plugged in. But Hook and Nick Wayne had a match on that show. Nick Wayne is a lot better than Hook. Like it is very
He's
clear.
more natural.
More natural.
Sure. Yeah.
And both of these dudes are just sitting on their ass, for weeks and weeks at a time, not even wrestling matches.
Nick Wayne's obviously more natural in the ring. I mean, shit, he was raised in a ring.
Hook's got a presence.
Hook has an aura, a presence that they, another guy that they didn't capitalize on. Now he's just a dude. So,
all right. I'm going to zoom out again for our third big picture point here. Where do you go with Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher after the Continental Classic?
Well, I think they already ruined the angle anyways. They should have done a big injury angle, and that would have been great. But I don't know what they need to do. I think they kind of need to separate them for a bit and bring, unless they do a rematch, they might do that in Australia. I feel like now I think about it. But maybe they should take a break and let them do their own thing for a while and then kind of come back later in the year or middle of the year, maybe in the summertime. Maybe, like I said, I think Kyle should be the one that beats Daniel Garcia for the TNT title. Yeah. I think it's going to be probably Lashley.
I guess Mark Briscoe has the first shot coming out
on Collision.
Yeah.
But that's just a match, and Daniel Garcia is going to win. They're going to shake hands and hug.
Totally. I think so. I think you're right.
But I think Kyle should beat him for the TNT title and have a run with that. Maybe Ospreay can go after that if they're not going to.
Unless Ospreay goes after Takeshita.
Oh, God, there's so many damn belts in this company. Keep forgetting he's a champion, too. Yeah, I mean, God, the international title. They got to just combine these damn titles.
I mean,
Continental title. It's like,
yeah, I mean, I'm sure they'll, at least hopefully, they'll start whatever the next journey is for both guys. But because of the tournament, there was no natural next progress. Like, they didn't create anything on the pay-per-view sort of as the next thing. So I'm just kind of interested in where they go.
They're just sorry. No,
I was just gonna say Will needs to like be very impressive and not lose for like 6 months. Like he lost a lot over the last few months.
Yeah, and then this match at the pay-per-view, the opener, like Will just beat him right in the middle, right? We just finished, so there's no.
It wasn't even his finish, wasn't it? The Styles Clash.
Styles Clash. Maybe he finally got people annoyed because he didn't win after he hit a Styles Clash to the floor on Darby.
Yeah.
So he can't beat Darby with the Styles Clash to the floor. He's 120 pounds, but he can beat Kyle Fletcher who's like 6'2", 225 pounds. But like I said, there's nothing coming out. The only reason you can do a rematch now really is because they're 1-1. That's about it.
My thought was the reason why he won with the Styles Clash was to set up a spot that he was going to hit Okada with it, and people were going to buy the near fall. That's why I thought he won with the Styles Clash.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I kind of called the finish of this match. Once Okada hit the Rainmaker, I think Dave's brother's like, "Oh, you think that's it?" I'm like, "Yeah," because he kicked out of his finisher before, so he's not kicking out of his finisher the second time, So
yeah,
like, and sure enough, there it was. But that's AEW for you.
All right, third segment here is I want to check in with John on a couple of shows here, a couple of angles, shows and angles here.
And on the cool check-in.
All right, so Wrestle Kingdom and Wrestle Dynasty are this weekend. We did this thing on the OG show. Where are you on the scale of excitedness for both of these shows?
For both, like a 3 or 4.
Yeah, I'm pretty low as well. I was thinking like 5. The thing that is interesting to me, Wrestle Kingdom, I know the people who watch New Japan on a regular basis, they love this show as an action show, as a wrestling show. I am trying to find the inspiration to really, really want to watch it. I've stayed up probably since 2020. I've stayed up and watched Wrestle Kingdom live. I'm not doing that this year. Part of that is because of Wrestle Dynasty. But also it's just like I don't know who's on this show that I'm really, really, really excited to watch. So that's the majority of it for me. But I am intrigued, I would say, more for Wrestle Dynasty. So maybe it's like a 4 or 5, 5 for Wrestle Dynasty, because I just want to see how different it's going to be. What's the presentation going to look like? How are they going to do this? And it may entirely be similar. Who are the announcers going to be? Like, how are they going to call the show different? Is it going to look different? I know it's going to be on New Japan World. So does that mean we have AEW announcer? Like how is all of that going to work? Like I'm interested there. But again, I'm not fired up about this main event in any way. Zack Sabre Jr. and Ricochet.
And same with Zack Sabre Jr. versus Shota Umino, not real. But then again, I'm not like Jeremy, watching it every show and not really that invested in. Shota Umino is never really one of the young guys I really was super excited about. I always liked his work, but I never saw him as not like Suji. I think is more of a marketable guy than him. But
you know my nickname for Yota Tsuji?
Hmm.
The Cheshire Cat. Just with that grin, man. That
grin.
I love that grin.
Like Brody King and David Finlay in Dynasty, like who gives a shit?
I mean that's it's like a AEW TV match.
Yeah,
like it's a Dynamite match.
4-way for the TV title on a nice story. El Phantasmo coming back, beating cancer, and sounds like he'll probably be the one that wins it. I'm guessing.
For me, it's Omega. I just want to see Omega. I want to see how he looks. Gabe Kidd is, Gabe Kidd can get heat because of his character.
Mm-hmm.
He's very solid, but really it's just Omega's the draw for me for Wrestle Dynasty. So I will stay. And it's not too late for us on the West Coast. I think it's like 8:00 on the West Coast. So I will definitely watch
Wrestle
that
Dynasty.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about going to Dave's and watching it, but that's the day I come back in town from.
Yeah. You're going to be
so
out.
I was like, that's going to be that's a big ask to be like, all right, I'm going to go watch wrestling now, but but that's another. I go, well, I guess it's an AEW show, but then again, you got Gabe Kidd, who's one of their top, gaijins, and he's losing to a guy who's not going to be back for a while, So I mean, a lot of stuff they've been saying in those promos have been funny because it's like real true stuff, like how they feel about AEW.
I saw what I think it was Yota Tsuji talking crap about Okada, right?
Yeah, that
I thought that was funny.
Well, not about. I mean, that could be more of a work, but
I mean, it's what I was like. Is this dude in our Discord? Like, what's going on here?
Gabe Kidd's pretty on with the vibe of the New Japan locker room, and Dave Finlay too was pretty funny. He was just like, I'm the guy that's sending people there,
Okay, but what happens if Tony Khan gave them $1 million contract? I think they'd probably change their tune.
Oh yeah. I mean, Tony doesn't care. He thinks, it's funny. And then we'll see. I mean, I'm curious to see what the Bucks match in a way to see what they do there, with that. So
yeah.
I heard Khan got hurt, so I don't know if he's in it or something like that, right? Or he got hurt or something.
Because
Jeremy was telling me.
Yeah, because their shows are slightly connected, and there's like, oh, if this person happened, I'm just like, I'll just watch it. Like I'm not gonna try and figure it all out. All right, the last thing I want I want to check in with you on is I watched the Cody and Kevin Owens segment on SmackDown, like I mentioned, and I had an epiphany.
Uh-oh.
Because Dave said that Cody is really John Cena, like he's their version of John Cena who is not getting booed. And I was like, I'm not sure he's John Cena. I think he's Hulk Hogan. I think he's the 2024
Wow.
Hulk. And here's why. Obviously they're different humans for one, but they're also different characters, right? Hogan was like the Superman, and Cody. He doesn't wrestle the same, the rhythm is the same, but this Kevin Owens feud is kind of what made me think this. You remember when we were kids, Hogan would do like 3 matches with, going around the towns, and you come back, it's like Hogan against Kamala, and like Kamala would win the first match by count out, and then they'd come back and Hogan would win the second match by disqualification. And then they set up the third match, and it's the cage match where Hogan wins and then moves on to the next guy. Like kind of the formula of those house show matches. It is very clear Kevin Owens is not winning this title. Very clear. So the trick is, how do you make him a viable contender to all of the fans? And WWE, WWF back then, did this with Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff was one of Hogan's best feuds, best house show feuds. They did that big event in Toronto where the 60,000 people or whatever. And Mr. Wonderful to me was always just getting that one little thing on Hogan constantly. Back, I wasn't able to see the house show matches except when they came out on a Coliseum home video, which was the big event. But he always, like, Hogan's the baby face, Mr. Wonderful's the heel. Mr. Wonderful always had this like one little extra thing on him. He had the excuse to make you believe, or to make you just want to see Hogan beat him up. And that's exactly what they're doing with Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens, even if he loses like he did on Saturday night's main event, he has an excuse for one, his own excuse. And then he lays Cody out at the end. Even on this SmackDown, Cody cuts this impassioned promo about who he does this for, his daughter, his wife, the fans, his mentor, Randy Orton, the timekeeper who he's related to. Like, he went through a bunch of these people. And what happens? Kevin Owens, just like a dick, he's like, great, I'm happy for you. Shake your hand. Nope, Cody's not going to shake his hand. Cody turns his head and he pushes Aldis right into Cody, and they both take a bump, and then he starts stomping on Cody. He's just like that, just that half a step ahead of Cody, which means now at the Royal Rumble, they're going to do this ladder match, and the fans just want to see the babyface beat up the heel for the blow off. Like, it's so 1986 WWF booking to me.
It's pro wrestling.
It's pro wrestling. We don't always see the feuds happen like that today, though. They're not always, they're not able to do that with the, like, because we just saw it in the AEW show. Nobody thought Mox was losing that match. No one in their right. I would have put my house on Mox winning that match, right?
Yeah.
They were not able to get the fans to believe that he had a chance, or that the babyface had a chance. But I whether it's Cody or whether it's Triple H or together or Paul Heyman, whomever is like really in charge of setting this, like, I'm sure as the sun comes up tomorrow that Cody Rhodes is not losing this title. But at the same time, I still want to see him beat Kevin Owens up. And to me, that is, they've done such a good job. And that's why I think Cody is Hulk Hogan right now.
And there's a nice, like, with the ladder match stipulation, there is a way for the heel to eke out, the win. So there's that too. I don't think he is. I have a feeling Randy Orton's coming back at this Royal Rumble match. I have to believe he's coming back. That's going to be a big match at WrestleMania. Kevin Owens and Randy Orton for sure. But I love the whole, from the Sami Zayn, Carmelo Hayes match to the Bloodline attacking Sammy, to Braun Strowman coming out to save Sammy, and them, beating down on him. I love that moment where Jacob Fatu and Braun Strowman had a face off, and the fans were like, yes. I mean, it's so cool that Braun Strowman still has that in it. They still believe in that guy, which is so cool. I have a soft heart for a Braun Strowman, but I just like that. It was a cool moment. And then right before that commercial break, here comes Kevin Owens' music out, right? And I thought that was tremendous. I'm like, God, man, this is like Watts Mid-South kind of stuff, where things would just kind of flow, the next, and everything's kind of connected. So I thought that was really well done. And of course, Cody came out, unbelievable promo. And I like the, Cody just turns his head for a second. Nick Owens shoves Nick Aldis into Cody. He kicked, and this was actually what they talked about and planned, of course. Kicked me in the back of the head, right? Because he's going to settle down, right? And like, that's, everyone knows, man. You get hit in the back of the head, that's a bad thing, right? Like, and it's such a cheap shot the way he did it. I freaking loved it. So Owens doing a great job. I texted you. I said, I don't know how this guy feels comfortable wearing black pants, black shirt, and pink shoes. Like, my brain can't do that. I see this style a lot. I was watching I think a freaking Guy's Grocery Games, and Guy Fieri's wearing this all dark and these bright shoes. I'm like, how can these people do this? I just can't put my mind to it. I just can't just have bright yellow shoes on all of a sudden. I'm wearing dark clothes.
It's the NBA.
That's what it is.
The NBA,
All right.
they have all these crazy colors. Like Steph Curry wore like highlighter green on Christmas, I think.
I'm
for
telling
his-
you, man. Like he said, John, dude, just do it, dude. Wear these yellow shoes and black shirt, black pants. Go out there. My anxiety will kick in. I think people just laughing at me. They probably won't even care, but they'll be like, in my mind, they're like looking at me, pointing at me, like laughing at me or something. It would be weird. But God
All
bless
right.
everyone.
So, like I said, we do the weekly show on F4W Online. You got to be a subscriber to that show. There's multiple ways to subscribe. There's an Apple Podcast feed. There's a Spotify subscription feed. The feed to the website where you get everything, including the Wrestling Observer. But how often are we going to do these? Well, we'll sort of have to kind of plan them out by, major pay-per-views happening on weekends. There's a lot of them these days. We will not be able to come back every week and do 2 shows a week. But like, for instance, for Wrestle Dynasty, I was like, oh, maybe we can do it. No, that show doesn't end. It's not going to end till midnight. So we can't come back on a Sunday night at midnight and do it. So we'll play by ear. But yeah, for your Elimination Chambers, for your AEW Revolution, we will definitely try to come back on the Sunday evening and give our thoughts before the next show. But I think Paul Fontaine is joining me this Thursday on our OG show. And we're going to attempt to get, actually, Jeremy already said yes. So what am I even saying? Jeremy's going to join. We're going to preview the Dynasty and the Wrestle Kingdom. He's going to make sense of all this stuff for me. And also because a lot of people are still going to kind of be on holiday until the end of the week. I think we're going to do it early, like at noon Pacific. And so 3 Eastern. So we'll live stream that on the F4W Online. I technically have to go to work that day, but I'm just gonna do it on my lunch break, and so we'll do that. So if you that version of the show will be free if you want to watch on YouTube. That is not behind the paywall. It'll be a free show on YouTube, and the audio will be behind the paywall on WrestlingObserver.com. So, all right, our first Moss edition of the Fight Game podcast, which John said goes back to 2017. So that tells you how long we've been doing this show. Is this show older than 2 of your kids?
No. No. Yeah. Yeah. No.
When was
Just
Hunter
one.
born?
2018. Yeah, you're right. It is.
This podcast is older
It
than
is.
2 of your children.
God,
That's
gosh.
crazy how long we've been doing this.
It's crazy.
All right. Thank you to the people who came in and jumped in on the stream. If you have not, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And also fightgamemedia.com is where you can find all of our content. I think we had like 4 or 5 live streams since Thursday or something like that. So we've had a lot of content on this channel. We're going to keep bringing it. Appreciate everybody. So for John LaRocca, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.